Hello, welcome. Oh, we've got the room opening up. Yes, we do. Hello. Got some familiar faces coming in. Hey. Hello. If we haven't met before, my name is Tim. I'm one of the mentors here at Wize, and very lucky to be joined today by a whole lot of the crew. We've got Jamie Johns himself, the guy who founded the company, on the call. Hey, Jamie.
G'day, Tim. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, pleasure to have you here on a topic close to all our hearts, and that you're something of an expert in. So can't wait to dive in and pick your brains on today's topic. We're also joined by the lovely Kristy, one of the other mentors. Hey, Kristy.
Hey,
How's it
Tim.
going?
Good to be here. Good. I love learning about this topic in particular.
Me too.
And grateful for all the battle wounds that Jamie has to help us avoid them ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. If this is your first Wize Live coaching call, extra warm welcome to you. We're really, really glad to have you here at what's midday East Coast Australia time. If it's your first time, we'd love to hear from you in the chat and maybe where you're calling in from and what time it is wherever you are. We've got a whole other support crew on today's call from Wize, from Mexico, Northeast USA, all over the place. So lots of time zones on today's call. If it's your first call again, extra warm welcome. Bit of housekeeping. This will go for an hour. And in the first half hour or so, we will pick Jamie's brains on a topic that is just super interesting and super important if you want to grow fast. And we really recommend, if you're anything like me and you are easily distracted, that you, whoops, there's the housekeeping there, that you turn your camera on, put your emails away, and just try to be as present as possible. If you have a question, come off mute, but otherwise keep on mute just in case it's noisy in the background. There's a lot of folks on the call today. And in the second, and if you have any questions, I should say as well, please use the chat and we'll try to get to them, because we're all here together on this virtual call and it's your time as well. We want this to be as interactive as possible. We always love it, don't we, when it's extra interactive. So we've got a lot of people on the call today. So just jump on the chat if you've got a question related to today's topic, because there's so many questions that come up with it, and it can be quite complicated and it can be hard to figure out what's important and what's not. So yeah, please use this time. Very lucky to have Jamie with us, and use this time to pick his brains, which I'll be doing as well. The second half of today's session will be a breakout room, again, as interactive as possible. So you can talk about any questions you have. Doesn't have to be related to today's topic, but if you've got any burning questions or fires, as we say, that you want advice on, it's great to save up those questions for our breakout sessions in the second half of the hour. So with that bit of housekeeping aside, we'd love to kick off, Jamie. A lot of interest in today's topic. We're looking at really a 101 mergers and acquisitions masterclass. What are the top 10 things to look out for in a potential acquisition? So, Jamie, just to set the context and set the scene, I'd love to hear a bit from you about how getting the secrets to M&A strategies has been really foundational to the growth in your own firm over the last decade or so. Could you set the scene for us before we dive into the details?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Yeah, welcome, everyone. It's a great topic today, particularly for those firms, owners who are focused on growth and how they're going to get there. So look, if I wind back roughly about 10 years now, when I first met my mentor, Ed Chan, Ed said to me, what sort of lifestyle do you want from your business? And so he was very much focused on beginning with the end in mind. Why have you got this business? What are you doing it for? What's the end game? And I told, Ed, that I went into business to have a better life. And, but at the time I was probably working 100 hours a week, and it really wasn't a better life. So there started the journey, Tim, of where I guess I am today, and that was all about growing the business for a definitive end in mind, and that was to have more time, money, and freedom. Was that a 1 year goal or a 2 year goal? No, it wasn't. It was really a 10-year goal and a lifetime goal. So to put it in context, I think everyone needs to sort of understand, well, why they've got a business. And I don't think it's to work 100 hours a week for your entire life.
Yeah.
100%. So the other thing to recognise is really 4 ways to grow your firm. The first way is to grow with referrals. They were very much, I think I grew by referrals 20% in the early years. The second way to grow your firm is to get additional work from existing clients. So that's another way to grow. The third way to grow is advertising and marketing. And not many accountants do advertising and marketing because the government in whatever country just tends to drive work to your door. And the fourth way to grow is the topic today is to look at mergers or acquisitions. Look, I think over the last 10 years, I've probably done about 10 or 11 now. And in that 10, 11, I've purchased bookkeeping fees, mortgage broking, financial planning, tax and accounting as well. So, there's probably 3 or 4 different types of businesses there as well. And so, when I met Ed, my mentor, Ed said that M&As are one way to grow out of the 4. And, before I'd met Ed, I had done an acquisition, but it was really a complete failure in the first couple of years. I wish I had have known Ed at the time because, when my first acquisition, I did everything wrong. But then when I met Ed, he'd maybe done 20 or 30 and, or been involved in lots and lots of discussions and negotiations, helping other accountants with mergers and acquisitions as well. So look, to give you the context, everyone, at the moment, there is really a lot of firms for sale. I think I subscribe maybe to about, 10 different brokers around Australia. So there's, it's just, I think the average age of the tax agent in Australia is about 54, 55. And I read a statistic the other day. I was on a webinar with, might have been Carbon, one of those software companies. And I think 75% of CPAs were over 55 or 60 or something in the US. So there really is a lot of firms for sale. And that's because of that baby boomer generation. And let's not forgetting in Australia, for example, there's about $6 trillion worth of, assets to pass to the next generation, the next 10 years. Yeah. So the opportunity to buy a parcel of fees is definitely there, Tim. But, hence why we're here today. It's important that you avoid the horror stories. I bought a parcel of fees and, the owner ran off with them or it didn't work out and all that sort of thing. So, look, and probably the final thing to say, give everyone context. I think roughly in the first 10 years of my own firm, it grew to roughly about $1 million in fees. But the next 10 years, because we're about 20 years old now, Sky Accountants, it grew by about 5 million. So, and that was, part of that's organic growth, but part of that's majority that's acquisitions as well. And, the banks will generally lend you 3.5 times the EBITDA of the consolidated EBITDA with the firm or the fees that you're purchasing. So for those who are out there looking to grow their firm, it is definitely a strategy that you can use. And Ed Chan, my mentor's used it, and there's a lot of firms. I think a lot of firms do it, Tim. The demand's very high. All the brokers I speak to, most of the firms get sold. So
yeah, it's true. It's true. No, thanks for that introduction, Jamie. It's been really inspiring just knowing you through some of that period of growth. I think you were, doing like maybe 3 million when I met you, and you're doing a lot more than that now. Jamie, you mentioned the opportunities which we should really be taking advantage of, that this is probably a time, there's more accounting firms going for sale over the last 5 to 10 years, and in the future 10 years than probably in previous decades. So it does seem like a good time to be looking at this topic. You mentioned the risks that come and that you've had bad experiences yourself. One of my heroes, Warren Buffett, says risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. There's so much that you and Ed have bottled up, which is really in the Wize Hub. I was wondering if you could, if I can share screen, or if you've got it, you can take us through what people might not know they already have access to, which is a bit of our Wize M&A mastery system. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think, Tim, it was about 2 or 3 years ago, Ed and I did a 4-hour masterclass, which is actually on the screen there, Tim, that Wize M&A playbook and workshop. So
this one.
So obviously you've got to purchase that, but it's about 4 hours of absolute, like, minute, detailed content in the masterclass. And there's also a mini course in there as well. So not trying to sort of go on the sell to anyone, but to put it into perspective for everyone, if you're looking to buy, 250,000 in fees, or 500,000 or $1 million, you really have to educate yourself. If you've never done this before, I can't stress it enough. If I had the knowledge that I had now, like, I would have paid a lot. Because if you do an acquisition or a merge and you get it wrong, it will be costly. But if you get it right, it's, you can get a return on investment of, Ed says, and we know, anywhere sort of maybe 40%, up to 40% return on investment if you do a merge. And that's simply because of the economies of scale. But my point here is, if you're looking at, acquiring a parcel of fees or FERS, another firm, just make sure that you get the knowledge that you need in order to do that, so that, it doesn't go south, as we say, because it's that, I think, what was it, Benjamin Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And I've seen on some of the, the community and the chats where, people have said, they've got an anonymous post and they said, oh, look, I bought a parcel of fees, it hasn't worked out. And, it's the people just get so emotional, and, sleepless nights, they've lost money. They might have borrowed money to buy the fees, and then they've lost the clients. So, we've all heard of the horror stories. So that 4-hour workshop that Ed and I and Wize put together, in comparison to the investment in yourself, versus, you're buying 500,000 of fees, it's like minute. So, so we call that the Wize M&A playbook. But certainly in our software as well, the Wize Hub, we have a lot of tools that you need to navigate as well. And as you said earlier, Tim, it's about minimizing the risk. It's all about minimizing the risk. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So that's probably maybe a good place to start, Jamie, because that's like the one of the core issues here. There's a few questions there. Great question. I think one of the things that I asked Ed when he was mentoring me, like yourself, I was really blessed to be mentored by Ed. And one question a lot of firms I work with ask is, is this important? Is this important? Is this necessary? And as we can see here, Jamie, you've got, I think, about 10 or so different questions there. Just to pick your brains on it, is any single one of these, non-negotiable or a deal breaker? How do you go about that negotiating process and figuring out what's important and what isn't as important?
Yeah, not any one is, Tim. It's really on what they would say a majority of factors. I'll sound like a lawyer. On the majority of factors, you've got to work out whether it's a good deal, and you've really got that 12-point checklist there. And one of the most important ones would be the retention. So really, the more red you see, the more risk in this particular matrix. Right. But, so everyone, you want to educate yourself about what a retention is. If you don't know what a retention is, you really need to get up to speed with the retention. But, often when you buy a parcel of fees, you might, for example, pay, 70% at settlement, and then 15% in year 1 and 15% in year 2. So that's really a 2-year retention. A lot of the times you see vendors who are selling, They might want a 1 year retention. So, they might want 80% up front and then 20% in 12 months time if the actual fees come in that you've purchased. Now, with the retention, this would be the one of the 10 points, Tim, but it's probably the most important thing to structure correctly to reduce your risk, because if I've got a really, really good retention, it just means at the end of the day, I'm only going to pay for the clients that stay. And so, in the spirit of Warren Buffett, if your risk is low, I'm actually quite happy to pay a bit more for the business. Low risk, happy to pay maybe, more than potentially what the vendor's even asking. But if the risk is high and someone says, oh, no, look, I don't want any retention, I just want 100% paid up front, I'm not going to pay much for that firm. So it's that dichotomy of risk and return. And one of the things there on the checklist, we've got the retention period is 2 years or more. So I've done deals where the retention's been 1 year, the risk has been relatively low. I've done deals where the retention has been 2 years. And then also the next question there, what is the retention amount? Under the deal, do you pay 90% up front, or, as I said earlier, do you pay 60% up front? So there's all those those 12-point questions there. Just, even in today's workshop, if you could get your mind around those 12 points and, really understand that in minute detail, you're well in the way to educating yourself what looks like a good deal versus what looks like a bad deal when it comes to acquiring, a parcel of fees or acquiring another firm. Yeah.
Love it. I remember once. And there's like you said just before, Jamie, there's a bit of like a kind of like a zero-sum game between terms and price. It taught me if the price is really, does that make sense? If the price is really good, the terms might not be as good, but vice versa. If the terms are really good and it's less risky, you're willing to pay a higher price potentially.
Yeah, Tim, perhaps if I just share my screen for everyone here today.
Yeah, please. Please.
Can you see that Wize M&A deal matrix there, Tim?
Yeah.
Does that come up?
Yeah, the big rocks, pebbles, and sand. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to share this with everyone, this is just this is one of the screens out of our Wize M&A playbook that I mentioned earlier. But Ed Chen taught me this, and Ed said when you're doing a deal, you want to look at the big rocks, the pebbles, and the sand.
Right.
And I had a chuckle to myself, and Ed said, well, it's a bit like a bucket. He said, what you do is you put the big rocks in first, and then you put the pebbles in, and then you put the sand in. And he said that makes a really solid deal. And Ed was always full of analogy. But look, everyone, in terms of the big rocks, you've got there the price, the terms of retention, the finance, the vetting of the vendor of the employees, the location, use your risk and pay tool that Tim just had up earlier, and your letter off. And now with the big rocks, it's important that you focus on those first, because if you really get down into the detail too quickly and you miss the big rocks, you could waste hours and hours of time. So it's important that as you're negotiating and you're putting the deal together, and whether it's with a broker or not, that you really look at this Wize M&A matrix, because you want to agree on the price. Okay, you want to agree on the price, you want to agree on the terms of retention. And what about finance? Is it subject to finance as well? So, and the vetting of the vendor and the employees, that's all about cultural fit. I would never do a deal if the cultural fit wasn't there. It's very important that when you ask for information, if you're a buyer, that you get the information quickly. Always red flags in every single touch moment or interaction with a vendor or the person who's selling tells you about how they're placed to sell their business or sell their practice. So if you have to wait for days on ending information, if they don't respond to emails, don't return phone calls, it's just really red flags. So there's a lot of things to go through. One of the classic ones is if the vendor wants to sell the business, if they've got staff that have been there 10, 15, 20 years, well, have they asked them? That's one that, has helped me avoid a couple of disasters. They didn't even ask their own staff who had been there 10, 15 years whether they wanted some equity in the business. So that's just, it's not about the buyer, it's about the seller being ready and prepared. Location's one. And so you move into the pebbles then. So you've got the heads of agreement. You've got to do your due diligence, around the staff. And then there's also letters. There should be a series of letters that go out before settlement and then after settlement. How are you going to tackle the branding? That's important as well.
Yeah.
So then, some more investigated into the vendor and change management, so change management is very, very important. And one of the best things you can do there, when I move over to the sand now on the screen, you've got their merge meetings. So, one of the most important meetings you have is your post-merge meetings, and they can go on for 6 months after you do the acquisition as well. So the other thing I'd say there, with all due respect to lawyers, be careful with lawyers. Sometimes they can be over vigilant. They can be sort of quite not entrepreneurial. They're very, very technical people. We need lawyers, and all due respect to them, but you want the deal to happen. You don't want a lawyer to come in and just nitpick like every single paragraph and every line of the contract, because that'll just stifle the deal. And I've seen that happen as well. So the contract itself, meeting the staff is important, Tim. Making sure that they know what's going on. But the timing is critical. And then obviously your client handover process as well. So that's what we call the Wize M&A deal matrix. And it's just to give people a guide on what you should be discussing and when you should be discussing it, so that, you put a nice acquisition or a merge together in that way. So I just thought I'd share that screen there, Tim.
No, it's so helpful. Thank you for sharing that, Jamie, because I know in my own experience and with some of the firms I've worked with, they don't split it into big rocks, pebbles, and sand. And as a result, they get really worked up about all the minute detail, and that can risk sinking the deal. So it's really helpful just to know what really matters. Yeah.
It's like trying to get into the detail of the contract, but you haven't agreed on the price.
Exactly. Yeah.
You waste legal fees, you waste time, waste money.
Yeah. And a couple of things you've said to me, again, if anyone's got questions, please now's a great time to ask Jamie. But a couple of things you've said to me over the last year or two have been so helpful that, the vendor's integrity has to fit. You can't do a good deal with a bad person is one of Buffett's, I think, sayings. And I think you said to me like fairly recently, Jamie, it shouldn't feel forced. It should feel kind of natural. That doesn't mean it's not a negotiation, but that was really helpful. And you said to me maybe 9 out of 10 acquisitions that you look at, you don't end up doing, and you let someone else jump on the hand grenade if it just seems too risky. Those little Jamie-isms. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, look, a great deal over the 10 or so I've done is where they just naturally flow, Tim. And I'm talking about the cultural fit. So, people are responsive. The information is forthcoming, very clear. The communication's almost over-communicate, not under-communicate. So the cultural fit is very, very important. It doesn't matter how good the deal is, but if you can't get along with the vendor,
it's bad sign, hey?
Yeah, we can't get along with the key people within the business, then it's red flags. You're better to avoid it. That's right. So
no, I love that.
Yeah,
we've got some people are sharing some love for the course, M&A course. Really happy to hear it's been useful. I can't stress enough just the IP in that course is just so good, and it's all from live experience, isn't it, Jamie? From you and from Ed over decades of doing acquisitions.
It's all Ed's career and all my career and all my experience. Just really laser focused into what makes a good M&A and what doesn't. But I think from a big picture point of view, if you're here and you own your own firm, you really should start at what is the lifestyle? What do you want from your business? Secondly, how much income do you want to make from the business to fund that lifestyle? And then on your business plan, or what we call it, Wize your growth plan, do acquisitions fit into that? And if they fit into that, when? So I'm always about goals being SMART goals, Tim, and everyone. Be time bound. So, a dream remains a dream without a date, they say, But on that journey, it's very important, everyone, that you get your house in order. If you're absolutely flat out now and swamped with compliance work or whatever you're doing, then, maybe it's just not the time for you. I must admit, all the acquisitions that I did right, I had my team set up. I had my senior client managers in place. So I had my Fab Five. I knew exactly what the teams and the firm were doing from a key performance indicator point of view. So, part of that M&A playbook, Tim, that we talk about is in the earlier chapters is get your house in order. One of the things that Ed taught me was, he said, Jamie, if you scale your firm, and I'd already done it, right, from my mistakes, if you got a firm that's got problems now, and then you scale the firm or buy an acquisition, you're only going to scale problems.
Right.
So it is important that, you get your org chart sorted out, that, you've got time yourself, because obviously, Tim, this is going to take time to do these acquisitions, but, so you've got to get my message there is get your foundations right. Make sure you got, your capacity plan right. Make sure you've got enough capacity. Make sure that, if you're a workaholic now and you haven't got time now, I'd probably avoid the acquisition part until you're ready. At some point, until you just got those foundations right, that could be a question someone have. When do I do an acquisition, Jamie? So not when you work 100 hours a week.
Yeah. Not yet. Totally. I love that. We might just finish up with one question from Charlene, and then we'll hop into the breakout. Thanks so much for that, Jamie. Charlene is asking, which is a really interesting question, actually. I'd love to hear your take on it. For a merger where the vendor would like to stay on in a much reduced capacity, like what would a good structure look like there? Have you seen that before?
Oh, yeah, many times. I've even done it myself. Fantastic, everyone. If the vendor's willing to stay on 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 years and then have a slow exit, the guys that I've worked with, the first 1 or 2 years they've stayed on full time. They've then handed over the clients. They've handed over the relationship to the senior client manager. And then what's happened, Tim, is they've slowly reduced. They've gone to like 3 days a week, this 6 months. And then after another 6 months, they've gone to 2 days a week. And then they've slowly retired. So, we've got to remember, everyone, that often the vendor selling, as they say, this is their baby. They started this firm 10, 20, 30 years ago, in some cases. And, it's very emotional for them. You'll only ever sell your business or your practice once in your lifetime. So if someone's willing to stay on for 2 or 3 years and then sort of slowly exit, that's fantastic. I think that's honourable. I think that's a good thing, and everyone can work together. The thing is in the planning, everyone. Plan. Most people don't plan. What's that old saying? Those who fail to plan. Those who fail to
plan to fail.
So, so, the key things that I do is consolidated cash flow forecasts, consolidated EBITDA. I work out all the teams in the capacity plan as well, Tim. That's, who's going to do what? The other question is, what are you going to change and what aren't you going to change? My message is, I can see some participants here today where I've spoken or I've said, don't change anything. Don't change anything. As soon as you change the color of the chair or you change the phone system or something, people see, human beings, we don't like change, but when trust is high, change is fast. There's like Dr. Stephen Covey's son. He wrote the book called The Speed of Trust. And in the book called The Speed of Trust, everyone, you can get it. He actually quotes Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett did like a multi-million-dollar deal and did it in 48 hours because he had so much trust in the vendor. So
totally.
The point is, when trust is high, when you've won people's confidence, you can then change things. And from my experience over the last 20 years, everyone, trust has to be built. And normally a merger and acquisition takes about 2 years to settle in. Roughly 2 years to settle in, and Ed Chan would tell you the same thing.
Huge. No, so helpful, so much wisdom there. Thanks so much for sharing that with us, Jamie. Hope everyone got plenty out of it. You can see here on my screen the stuff we're talking about today. So step 14 is in the Wize Vault, and there's some videos with Ed and Jamie on M&As. And then, yeah, hop in your Wize Hub, go to board and execute to look at all the IP we were showing you today.
Yeah.
And I think if you've done all that and you still want to see more, you can hop into, I think it's like a 4-hour master system that we did. And there's a huge ebook there too, isn't there?
There's also a mini course in there too, for those who are interested,
Oh, okay.
like step by step. But the other thing, everyone, if you don't have it, make sure you reach out to Sammy here or our Wize team. You should get a copy of our Wize Freedom Strategy Map. So we recently released it. It's about 100 steps to do exactly what I've done and the other mentors and the firms that we work with. But it's called the Wize Freedom Strategy Map. Please reach out to us, get a copy of it, because in stage 3, the sort of more advanced stage is where we talk about, buying a parcel of fees as well. Yeah. So that's called the Wize Freedom Strategy Map, and it's really 100 steps to it's just a blueprint of what you need to do to achieve your goals with your firm and your lifestyle.
Yeah, totally. I'm looking at it right now. That's why I'm looking off to the side here. I've got it on my my office wall. Huge map. So yeah, that's totally recommend that. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll hop into the breakout rooms. Thanks again so much, Jamie, for that. Whirlwind tour of an M&A. So we'll have 2 breakouts. We'll have one with Jamie and Kristy. That'll be breakout room 1, and then I'll head up the other one. And then we'll see you all back at 5 minutes to the hour. Thanks again. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Just a couple of things. Be a tragedy if you walked away from here and you weren't aware that we could help you in some way. So just got on the slide there. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. If you're relatively new here and you're not aware of what we offer, like I said, we've been lucky to have Dani heading up Wize Talent on the call with us today. And everyone in my own breakout room, we really touched on, Jamie, how hard it is to find good staff, and how doing a tuck-in can actually help you get good staff, not just more fees. So yeah, if you are looking at hiring overseas or in your own country of operation, please reach out to Dani, and she will be more than happy to meet with you to see how we can help. We mentioned the Wize Hub today as well. I'm sure if you're on this call, you probably already have your subscription, but a lot of the IP we looked at today is in the Wize Hub. So much information there. You also get a Wize Vault subscription. So if for some reason you're not signed up for that, again, reach out to us, and Jamie can take you through all of that. If you're looking to grow, like we said today, there's the M&A system. There's also training, which can help you vetting new hires. And there's also our flagship mentoring coaching program, Wize Growth, which I head up with the other mentors as well. And we've got a brand new one, Wize Elite. Jamie, do you want to just, I don't think that's on the slide there. Do you want to take people through Wize Elite just quickly and tell them what's involved in that one?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Wize Elite is a new initiative we started a few months ago, and it's going really well. And essentially what happens is everyone, every Wednesday, you have a call with myself, and basically what you do is the firms in there are following what we call the Wize Freedom Strategy Map. So that is a step-by-step blueprint of how to achieve your goals, in turn, whether that's growth or building a team, whatever it may be. We follow the Wize Freedom Strategy Map, which you get a copy of. You're welcome to have a copy of it now. And then every Wednesday, the firms come together with myself, and I follow one of those steps on the Wize Freedom Strategy Map. That's about the first 15 minutes. And sometimes firms are really infatuated with that particular topic, but the rest of the time is the firms that are in Wize Elite coaching ask me every single question they've ever had or ever got. And it's the rhythm and routine on that is every week. And that way it gives you an opportunity to connect with me once a week and, ask me a question. This is my problem, Jamie. I'm looking to do this, but this is what's blocking me. This is my barrier. How do I overcome that? How do I approach this particular topic with a client? Or how do I approach this situation with a staff member? Or, it could be any question, guys, that you've got. When do I need to hire? When do not need to hire? Why aren't I making enough money? Why am I so busy? Why am I going crazy? Why am I workaholic? So Wize Elite coaching is every week. It is group coaching, but I can tell you what, if you ask a question, I can beat my bottom dollar that all the other firms need to know the same thing. And so we've got firms in there that are very small. This might be 100,000, 200,000 fees, right up to some firms that are turning over 8 million. And everyone's on this same journey. They're on the same path. So, I'd welcome you to look at that with me. Happy to do a one-on-one with you, and you can do a deep dive just so you get that little bit more help and guidance from a coach or a mentor. All successful people, doesn't matter what field you look at, sport, they have a coach or a mentor. And I just think you got to find the right person, someone who's done it. Someone who's done it, someone who's living it, and that's important to that aspect as well. So if you want to have a call, book a call with me to investigate that further, and it's quite affordable too. It's not, perhaps what you're thinking, thousands and thousands of dollars. It's quite affordable for firms who are looking to have a coach or mentor or someone to help them on a weekly basis.
It's also great from an accountability perspective, isn't it, Jamie, that there are daily and weekly non-negotiables, and it's about helping you create the habits in the micro to have the macro results.
Oh, absolutely. The definition of insanity, everyone, is doing the same thing every day, expecting a different result. Now, if you're here, I can probably imagine you want some change. You want something better for your life or your business. So does that mean that you're going to have to change? Of course it does. Of course it does. Yeah. So, without being rude, it helps you that with accountability to change your thinking, to change the way. If you change your thinking, you can change your decisions, to change your actions. That's where you'll change your circumstances. That's what it is.
Yeah. So good. So good. Chris is representing Wize Elite there. It's gold. 3 months in, starting to see things happen. That's why we're here, Chris. We love to hear it. So
I'll slip you that 50 later on, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks. And thanks everyone so much for joining us. Our next topic really is quite pertinent. We talked a lot about trying to find good people and how people are a constraint, which might hold you back from doing a tuck in my breakout. Well, our next one is on how to retain your best employees. It's not simply enough to find them, is it, these days? You've got to retain them. So how to build a great culture in your firm. Never been more challenging with working from home and distributed teams. So really, really great topic. 8 a.m. On Eastern Coast, Eastern Coast, New South Wales and Victoria, isn't it?
This is a massive topic, Tim, that over the next few years, there's supply and demand in our industry. It's getting more difficult to find people. So you're going to have to learn skills and tools to retain your people. Couldn't stress that.
Way more important. Yeah.
We're also going further into that topic in the Wize Talent Monthly Call as well. Dani, what date is your clinic?
Ours should be the 4th of November, which I think is Melbourne Cup Day.
It is Melbourne Cup Day for you Victorians. National holiday, apparently. State holiday, isn't it? Wild. We're all working up in New South Wales, but So plenty of. Are they recorded, Dani, as well? If people can't make it,
and they'll be in the Wize Vault.
Yeah, too good. So two for the price of one next month on retention. All right. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone, and thank you, Jamie.
That's right. Hope everyone got something to take away from today, at least.
Yeah, totally.
Bye, everyone.
Awesome.
Great to see you.
Catch ya.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.